AskReddit. What's something you did as a kid or teenager that still embarrasses you to this day? When I was 10 I jacked it while getting a haircut. Looking back on it, the haircut lady gave me really weird looks. That poor woman. During a choir concert I had a solo and my voice cracked terribly on the very last high note to end the song. All I heard was faint ahs and one dude dying of laughter. Yeah, my dad was an asshole too. I had something like that happen to me once. I was playing a saxophone solo at my church for our large Christmas concert. Very difficult piece and very showy. Got to the very last note, which was extremely high, and squeaked in front of the entire audience. Cue embarrassment. When I was 7, just after my sister was born, I remember being in a Jack-in-the-Box with my mother, grandmother, little brother, and the baby. I wanted attention, and I thought I'd figured out a trick to get my mother to pick me up and coddle me. I'll tell her I'm gassy. Every time the baby is gassy she picks her up and coddles her. I started saying real loud, "Mom, I'm gassy. I'm really gassy." My grandmother and my mother started shushing me, and I got louder. "Why? I'm really gassy." I started to put the whine on. "Mom, I'm gassy." Their shushes got really intense, and I started to wonder what it was that I was saying that was embarrassing them. When the baby is gassy it's adorable. Why isn't it adorable for me to be gassy? I'm adorable too. Then I looked behind me and saw a whole table of young adults, probably in their very early 20s, laughing their asses off at me. I had no idea why they were laughing, but I knew they were laughing at me. As I walked by, one of them told me to fart. I totally didn't get it and ran to my mother. I'm not sure when it hit me what I had done, whether it was days later or years later. But when it did, oh my god, you can't imagine. But I still sometimes lie in bed at night and cringe thinking about it. Edit. Hey, thanks for the gold. You are tops. When I was a kid, probably between 5 to 10, I found out that bouncing on top of my hand in bed felt good. So good that I would do this every single night. I remember a couple times my parents would come in and tell me to stop grabbing at my pee-pee. So then I tried, being all sneaky about it, because I knew my bed was loud as I bounced on it. In fact, I remember thinking I was sneaky enough to do it at sleepovers and while sleeping next to my grandma. Looking back at those years, all I can think is that everyone fucking knew. When I was at summer camp, I was probably 8. I told one of the male counselors at lunch that I could pick him up. I got behind him, bent my knees, grabbed my hands around him, and lifted with such force I still remember what his balls felt like when I pushed them back inside his body. I got him off the ground, that's for sure. Horrifyingly embarrassing, but the adults tried to be as nice as possible about it. It was an accident. Tried to pick up my camp counselor, squashed his baby maker. I told a good one yesterday about a lady buggering when I was in 2nd grade, but the next best one has to be when I was in high school and I was out on what I think was a date with this girl. We went to the zoo and then grabbed some food at some place. Afterwards, we had to split up in order to get our trains that were going in the opposite direction. I awkwardly tried to lean in for a kiss while she went in to hug me, and I ended up headbutting her in the face and her nose started bleeding. I was embarrassed as fuck, so I just asked, "Are you okay?" And when she said, "I think so," I just waved goodbye and ran into the train station. One time during gym class in 5th grade we were all sitting in a circle listening to the teacher's instructions. I had to urge to fart and thought it'd be a nice little quiet one. Little did I know the slick floor we were sitting on amplified the toot, so it sounded like I had pretty much shit myself. Being a girl I was super embarrassed, and when the entire class turned our way I immediately snapped my head to the side and stared at my best friend Shania while plugging my nose and making a disgusted face. She was then known as Shania Stank for the rest of the year. I had to buy her chocolate milk at lunch every day for weeks before she forgave me. She still never lets me live it down. During 6th grade I simultaneously sneezed and farted during sustained silent reading time. The entire class heard, and the entire class laughed. 6th graders are mean. My time to shine. So, I wanted to go to a friend's house. This was elementary school. But when my friend and I approached my mom to ask permission, she told me that I had to go watch my brother's football game instead. To express my anger at her decision, I climbed to the top of the tree in our front yard and, with my mom and friend staring up at me in bewilderment, screamed for 30+ minutes straight. Just screeched at the top of my lungs. I've worked on my problem solving skills since then. Edit. Holy moly, thanks to whoever gave me gold for this. When I was in 5th grade I had a giant crush on the cutest boy in the class. His name was Ian. One day our table was talking about gel pens. This was the in thing, and he said he wanted a blue one. I said he could have mine. Unfortunately I didn't have a blue gel pen, so that night I forced my mom to take me to the neighborhood store to buy one, so I could give it to him. So we go to the store, I find the perfect gel pen, and we head to the register to check out. Guess who we ran into on the way? Ian. The sad part is that I don't even think he noticed, and he barely cared when I gave it to him the next day because he clearly did not have the same feelings towards me that I had for him. He went on to be the cutest boy in our middle school and arguably the cutest boy in our high school as well. I had many classes with him over the years and my crush didn't totally fade, but I don't think he ever really noticed me. Edit. Spelling. Edit 2. To all the confused Ians suddenly coming out of the woodwork. So far we've learned that this was not in West Palm Beach, Washington State, North Carolina, Street, Patrick's or Street, Anthony's schools, and I'm not Annie or Kayla. My school was having one of those scared straight assemblies. They had brought in a bunch of former convicts who had served time to tell us about how horrible jail was. One lady told us about her jailmate Nancy. Nancy had apparently gone crazy a few years before and microwaved her child and fed him to her unsuspecting husband. I don't know why, but I just broke out in laughter. I had never heard of something so ridiculously horrible, and the whole room got silent and everyone stared at me while I chuckled to myself about the microwaved baby. My mom walked in on me and my GF redressing ourselves after sex. We were 15 at the time. She said no words. When I went downstairs after all I could say was I don't know what you thought we were doing, but it wasn't sex. Flawless cover up. Yeah, I'm going to this guy for all of my sex advice. Kindergarten. We were in a playhouse. It was a freaking cool playhouse, but I digress. We were just having fun playing around in the house. A bunch of us, and one of my best friends Cody, was sitting down facing the opposite direction with my other good friend Nathan. What happened next I have no explanation for my actions. I was right behind him, stood up, sat and placed my butt right on his head, and farted on it. I could feel the vibrations around his scalp and escape through my cheeks. He of course yelled, and was like gross. Long story short I had to sit on the thinking chair for some time. I thought it would be funny but everybody thought I was gross. God, I was an awkward kid. When I was 15 and had lost my virginity, I wouldn't shut up about it. I talked about it. I'm detailed to 2 seniors in my creative writing class. I barely knew them. In 8th grade I'd write deep song lyrics on my math papers. My teacher thought I had a crush on him. All throughout elementary school I was the kid who cried at everything. When I was maybe 12 or 13, me and my mom were using an automated checkout machine at the grocery store. It was fucking up, so I loudly said this machine can eat me. I didn't know what it meant, but I heard it in a movie. And lastly, probably one of my worst moments, at 14, while making out with my first boyfriend, my mind drifted off to Step Brother, since I'd watched it the day before. Out of fucking nowhere I whisper I want you out of my fucking house to him. We broke up shortly after that. Step Brothers reference was an outstanding move. My school was having one of those scared straight assemblies. They had brought in a bunch of former convicts who had served time to tell us about how horrible jail was. One lady told us about her jailmate Nancy. Nancy had apparently gone crazy a few years before and microwaved her child and fed him to her unsuspecting husband. I don't know why, but I just broke out in laughter. I had never heard of something so ridiculously horrible, and the whole room got silent and everyone stared at me while I chuckled to myself about the microwaved baby. Oh God, I'm the most embarrassing person I have ever met. Where do I start? I had read the book Roll of Thunder Hear My Cry in 5th grade, and there was a word in the story I had never heard before, but was always used in situations where one character was angry with another. So, one afternoon when I walked onto the back porch and saw my dog chewing on my sneaker, I yelled, "You little N-word." Yes, you read that right. I called my dog the N-word. I have never seen my parents appear so quickly. I racially abused my dog and I'll never be able to forget it. If only that was the only embarrassing story I have. Edit. His name was Fluffy.